The Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast, starts now. Welcome back, everybody, to the Liverpool Reaction, American LFC podcast. And as we are talking right now, before we get into the game, big news about an hour ago that Alexander Isak is they've agreed on a deal for £130 million with Newcastle to sign Alexander Isak. Coach, we will get into the game, but we've been hearing about this all summer, and day before, I guess, from our standpoint, the deal's done.
Well, let's see if Isak can get into the team first. I mean, Ekitike is doing pretty well, and actually, he might end up taking Mo Salah's place the way things are going right now.
Yeah, Coach. When you think about Isak, we all know he's a good striker, 20 goal striker in the Premier League. What, in your opinion, makes him so effective in this league?
Well, first of all, I think he's a very versatile striker. He's fast, and he can be pretty clinical in front of the goal, which obviously is a premium for strikers at the highest level of the game, and that's why the Reds are prepared to pay the big bucks for him.
Yeah, as you kind of think about the big defenders and the teams that have good defenders, he always gives them fits. He scored on Liverpool. If anybody gives Van Dijk fits, it's Alexander Isak, and I think he can do the same to Saliba and Gabriel. So we got a guy that's not intimidated by these big defenders and can really, like you said, be clinical in front of goals. I remember the thunderbolt he scored against Liverpool last year, and then in the FA Cup, right? Yeah, in the FA Cup final, slotted one home.
Yeah, and I mean, if I recall, his debut for Newcastle was against Liverpool, and he scored in that. He scored quite a few goals against Liverpool, so obviously he's made an impression on the club. Plus the fact he scored consistently in the Premier League.
It's a great addition. Let's hope it gets over the line. Mark Guéhi is another one. Just real quick, Coach, Mark Guéhi looked absolutely phenomenal today against Aston Villa. Scored a beautiful goal, was all over the place defensively. I hope we can get that one across the line, because now there's rumors that Joe Gomez is also potentially going to AC Milan. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it boils down. We have probably, 15 hours, something like that. I'm not sure. Can't do the math right away in my head on the actual British time, but we don't have much time left. Anyway, Coach, rock fight of a game, tale of two halves, kind of, but it was interesting hearing Mikel Arteta after the game saying that he came to win the game. And when you kind of look at the lineup suggests something else.
Well, to be fair, I think there was a question mark over Odegaard, whether or not he was fully fit, because he did pick up that injury the week before.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what the factor was there. When I looked at the lineup and I saw the midfield for Arsenal, I felt very much similar to how I did when they played against Newcastle. Newcastle have a big, strong, physical midfield, a talented midfield, but they also have that dimension. And that seemed to be what Arteta was going for with the way that he lined up as well. So as I say, I don't know whether Odegaard would have featured if he hadn't have been injured the week before. Probably, because he's captain. But anyway, it looked like it was going to be a physical kind of game. And of course, the one area where Arsenal excel is restarts. And first half, certainly there were enough of those.
Yeah, the team had in the midfield had Declan Rice, Marino, and Zubamendi. And you don't think offense when you think of those guys, but I think we also need to say that Konate and Kirkes had much better games today. Konate played very well today before he got subbed out. I believe they were cramps. And then Kirkes had his hands full with Madueke, but kind of stood to task, didn't dive in. And it was nice to see that first Konate kind of come out of his slump, and then Kirkes kind of controlled aggression. So that was really nice to see. But really, the game is all about one moment. And in the 82nd minute, Zubamendi fouls Curtis Jones. Virgil van Dijk found Curtis Jones on a through pass kind of in a half space. Zubamendi fouled him, and up steps the Hungarian captain, Dominik Szoboszlai. And, I mean, Coach, you can't say enough about this goal. David Raya for Arsenal is a phenomenal goalkeeper. He's a very good goalkeeper. You can kind of see he starts creeping over to the middle of the goal as Dominik Szoboszlai is stepping up to it. So he's at the middle of the goal and he still doesn't get to it. I mean, that ball had pace, that ball had swerve, got up and down over the wall, off the post, and the game winner. I mean, what an absolute amazing goal. But Coach, first of all, before that, talk to me about what you thought about Kirkes and Konate.
Yes, actually, one thing that I think is very interesting about Kirkes is when we watched him play for Bournemouth last year, the big thing that stood out was he was very Andy Robertson-like in terms of the way that he got up on the outside and he overlapped and all that kind of stuff, crossed the ball. We've not really seen that at Liverpool so far. And I think some of the games he's played previously, the opposition have really put him under pressure. And so I guess he had something to prove. And I rate Madueke. I know that Arsenal, that they had that stupid, the thing that they wanted to sign because they didn't want him, the fans.
Right.
And I don't know why, because I think he's a really good player, very, very dangerous. And certainly Kirkes had to be at his best to keep him out, because there was a couple of times when he seemed to have beaten Kirkes, but somehow, some way he got back and, he got a foot to the ball, whatever, but he certainly kept him at bay. And so I thought it was by far his best game. And ditto with Konate. I mean, he looked very, very solid as well. So clearly since the Newcastle game, I think Arne Slot has spent an awful lot of time on the training pitch, concentrating on how they defend. And I think one thing that was very, very clear, and this lent itself to the way that the game was, because think of some of the previous games this season, the Bournemouth game, the Newcastle game, they were very open games. And Liverpool really adopted an attacking posture, and the opposition, certainly attacked Liverpool. So they were very open games. Today was much, much more conservative by Liverpool. And I think that you're correct. Arsenal, if you think of Arsenal, like you highlighted the midfield, think of Liverpool at their peak under Klopp. They had a very workmanlike midfield threesome. But then they had three forwards that really worked together. And so I don't think Arsenal had that dimension with their three forwards. They do have a lot of talent up front, but there doesn't really seem to be a way that they play together. And Liverpool, conversely, I think they were very well set up. They played conservatively. They didn't make the game too open. And I think, as many of the critics, many of the pundits have highlighted, they were waiting for the big moment, and it was Dominik Szoboszlai that delivered it.
Coach, you mentioned Kirkes and, his overlaps. I've noticed today it became very noticeable that whenever Gakpo gets the ball, he cuts inside and he's looking for a shot. So there were a couple times where Kirkes was coming on the outside and he didn't even look at him. Now I know that does create, openings because you have to commit a guy over there regardless, right, to cover the overlap. But I noticed that and just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that he has tried to get forward a few times, but I think you're right. Gakpo doesn't seem to use him, so I don't know whether there's a little bit of a trust issue or whatever. Because I can't recall that when Andy Robertson was playing. He does love to cut inside, Gakpo, and whilst many times his first thought is to go to goal, sometimes when the route has been blocked, he would reverse the ball to Robertson. But so far we've not seen that with Kerkez. Mind you, coming back to what I said earlier, I don't think we've seen him do it a lot yet, Kerkez, and that could well be because he's trying to establish himself as Liverpool's premier left full back. So I don't know whether that's part of the dynamic here.
Coach, back-to-back man of the match performances from Szoboszlai. I mean, starts at right back, just does a great job last week against Harvey Barnes, does an amazing job this week against Martinelli. I mean, the versatility of Szoboszlai, along with the work rate and engine, is really kind of coming to, I don't know if he's in his peak years yet, but I mean, he's really in a great vein of form.
He is. And I think, as I've said it in a previous pod, I just wonder whether he's the new Trent, because he has some comparable skills to Trent Alexander-Arnold. I guess the question is, how does he adapt defensively? And based on the two games we've seen so far, he's done extremely well.
Coach, with the potential new signings, and Connor Bradley is a right back by trade, but we got to keep Szoboszlai on the field. And do we pull somebody from midfield? I know Florian Wirtz has had his, I think there's some getting used to. I thought his second half was much better than the previous games and the first half, but I mean, Szoboszlai, you can't sit him regardless. So is he going to be at right back, or are we going to move him to the middle? I mean, he seems he can do it all right now.
Yeah, I think the manager has to rotate, and definitely rotate in the midfield. I think one thing that was evident today was I didn't think that McAllister played well.
Yeah.
He looks off pace. Obviously, he's not played much. I think he's had some niggly kind of injuries, which have plagued him for a while. It was the same last season as well. But he does look off pace. And I just wonder whether in some games, whether it's better to play a more traditional midfield three rather than a two holding midfielders and then Wirtz in front of them. I just think that might be a better route to go, because as I noted earlier, Arsenal and then Newcastle before them, very, very strong midfields, but very, very physical. And I think that in terms of the physicality, that can go up a dimension, actually. Say, for example, if a game is on the line. And you also have the ability with Florian Wirtz to play him, to play him in the forward line. So I think the manager has a lot of options. And as I've said in previous episodes, I think the one weakness we saw from him last year was that he could have maybe rotated more in midfield. And I think he's going to have to do that this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how he goes about it, whether he always plays the 2 and the 1 in front, whether in some games he'll play a midfield threesome. And who knows, but I hope overall that he does try to do that, so that hopefully Liverpool are in the position that they were in March this year, where obviously they're doing well in the Premier League. They've had a great run in the Champions League. Then the knockout round comes, and okay, they maybe had the misfortune of drawing PSG, but it also coincided with a period where Liverpool were looking jaded. And so I think that he has to plan to overcome that. And yeah, he needs to use his midfield maybe a little more than he did last year.
Coach, the intensity of the game was evident. People were pulling up with cramps left and right. We mentioned Konate earlier, Verts also in the 88th minute, and Jurriën Timber at one point also. So the intensity of the game was there for sure. But Coach, the team hasn't necessarily played very well over the 3 games, and yet they have 3 wins. They're nine points in the bank, and they're top of the table. What can we take from this, if anything?
I think that he's carried some of the consistency that Liverpool showed last year. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I do miss Jurgen Klopp, especially in the first half today. I'm thinking, oh gosh, it would never be like this with Jurgen Klopp. So, like trying to see both sides of the coin. Okay, it's going to be a long season, so maybe you don't go hell for leather in every game, like we saw in the Klopp era, and then they pick up a lot more injuries, so on and so forth. But Liverpool have a lot of good players, and okay, they've had their problems at the back, but Alisson and Van Dijk have still been strong. Like they've performed strong, I would say, through the 3 games. It's maybe been some of the players around him, or around them, sorry, Konate and Kerkez, as we mentioned earlier. They've had their ups and downs, but clearly they've worked on it this week, and it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll start to see rotation in the fullback areas anyway, because that was one area where he did rotate last year.
Yeah, with the international break, or however you want to call it, next week, there's a lot of our players go off to their national teams, and hopefully, knock on wood, nothing traumatic happens. But Coach, as we look kind of forward, the first 4 or 5 games were a tough stretch. We knew that coming in. Bournemouth played exceptional against Tottenham yesterday, and really, I was just thinking to myself that 4-2 result and that 2-goal comeback from Bournemouth, although we got the win, is indicative of how good that team is, because they're a really good team. And then Newcastle at St. James Park, always going to be tough for anybody. And then obviously Arsenal, Liverpool and Arsenal are tipped to win the league here. So it's one of the two potentially. There'll be a third, I'm sure that'll come. But the pundits are saying that these are the odds, betting odds favorites. Coach, with the schedule lightening up, and I mean that with all due respect to the teams, what can we expect from this team? Or is this team now going to be a little bit more solid in defense because of the Konate and Kerkez showing, or from a forward standpoint, are we going to be much more aggressive and scoring more goals?
Well, hopefully the latter. The big thing, and harking back to last season, where Liverpool opened the season with 3 straight wins with an easier schedule, and then international break, everyone's kind of high on that. Nottingham Forest are coming to town, and Liverpool dropped the game, as we all recall. And I think the big lesson that Arne Slot learned that day is you don't start your South Americans after all they're traveling to and fro. I mean, because they will have their World Cup games this week, and for them it's really intense because it's coming down now to the final stages. So obviously Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez have gone, but you've still got McAllister, you've still got Alisson, And then the rest of the crew will be all over the place playing with their countries. So I think he's got to be smart in terms of the team that he fields against Burnley. And then I think the other thing that has to be taken into consideration is Burnley. It's a game everybody now will expect Liverpool to win easily. And I mean, like, this is a banana skin game, because clearly they aren't the same level as the three teams that Liverpool have played so far this season. They won't have as many players away on international duty. So whilst I'm sure the manager will probably give them a couple of days off, they will also have some time to solidify some kind of game plan for Liverpool. And the strongest asset that Burnley had last year when they were in the Championship was that they were very strong defensively. Now, yes, they have conceded goals, but they've also showed, as they did at Old Trafford, that they can also score goals. So I think that this is going to be a tougher game, especially in the light that Liverpool will have their players going to the four corners of the earth, coming back in. Will he be starting Isak? I would be very surprised if he starts Isak, but I think he's going to be there and he's going to be sitting on the bench. Should Liverpool sign Mark Guéhi? Would he start? Unlikely, I think. I would say it's unlikely that he would start. Do Liverpool play a Champions League game right after Burnley? I think they do, don't they?
Yes. They have Atletico Madrid on the 17th. So they play Sunday the 14th against Burnley at Turf Moor, and then host Atletico Madrid on Wednesday. And then Saturday is Everton.
Oh, gosh, the derby. Gosh,
yeah.
Where is the derby at?
It's at Anfield.
Anfield, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a very interesting week then for Liverpool, because clearly Burnley will be up for it. They've got nothing to lose. I think they'll try to play it tight at the back. There's always the danger that Liverpool might underestimate them perhaps a little bit. But I think the way that he will set up the team, because you'll have the Atletico game in mind. Do you know if the game is on a Wednesday? Or...
It is, yeah. So the Burnley game is Sunday. The Atletico game is Wednesday.
And how about Everton?
And then Everton is Saturday. I mean, it's a very quick turnaround.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, those are two very, very close back-to-back games at Anfield. So yeah, is Everton a 7:30 game?
It is. It's the early game. Yep.
Okay. I mean, so Everton will be, like, they're doing well, obviously. Like the Cocker Hoop and Jack Grealish has obviously made a big impression on the team and the fans and everything. So they will have a week to prepare for Liverpool. That is going to be an interesting game.
Coach, the Burnley's style, and you saying, they're more or less potentially going to park the bus ish, right? I mean, they're going to play defensively. The Florian Wirtz's attributes were brought in for situations like that. Do you anticipate him playing better in a game where we have the ball, say 70% of the time, and we have him pinned in for long periods of time?
Maybe, but I think the issue now with Wirtz is I see him making runs and they're not finding his runs yet. So I think that's the first step that the team has to take collectively when it comes to involving him as part of the play. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he rests Wirtz against Burnley. I wouldn't be surprised, because he really has got to rotate his midfield that week. If you think about it, especially because, I mean, like Atletico Madrid, They will be a tough nut. Although
They always are.
I see that they've made a slow start in La Liga this year, but they will be tough. They will be physical. That'll be a demanding game on Liverpool, and then they've got to go and play against their neighbours. Well, they're not so close neighbours now, I guess, but still part of the city. And as I noted earlier, they are going to be up for that game big time.
So
it'll be a challenging week. That'll be a challenging week.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Coach, if we sit Verts, is this a Curtis Jones game? Who else is in the midfield from a rotation standpoint?
Well, I'm assuming that McAllister will be going to South America, so I wouldn't play McAllister against Burnley. So I think possibly that Jones will come into it. Is Curtis Jones in the England squad?
I'm not sure.
I have a feeling he might not be.
I don't think he is.
Even though he did quite well in the internationals, at the end of last season. So I think, I think Curtis Jones could well play in that game against Burnley. He seems to like Gravenberg. Doesn't seem to. I mean, I think Burnley would be a good game for somebody like Endo.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, again, he's going to be traveling. He's going to be in Asia, isn't he, with Japan? So, I mean, he's got a lot of miles in his legs, as it were, traveling to play World Cup there for Japan.
Yeah, but he hasn't had a lot of minutes in the Premier League, so maybe it does make sense to play him. I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting. Coach, you mentioned also, is Isak going to play? Isak hasn't trained with a team for quite some time, all summer. I mean, at least 3 to 4 weeks, right, to get up and running. I mean, he can come in, and say against Burnley, he gets maybe 15 minutes at the end, and say Atletico, he gets 20 minutes or something, and Everton maybe gets another 10 minutes, or maybe they sit him in one of them altogether. I mean, we're looking October before he's really kind of got his legs under him, right?
Logically, I know the fans will be wanting him to play from the get-go, but I don't really feel that makes any sense. And I think the other thing that you've got to consider with Alexander Isak, I mean, I'm a little bit kind of, okay, it's a lot of money to pay for a player. He's a top striker, but he picks up a lot of knocks, which is probably a good thing, that they've got options. Because if you think about it now, Liverpool had 5 strikers last year. And a lot of people said, okay, compare Arsenal to Liverpool, because they were the main challengers for the title. And they just didn't have the same kind of attacking core that Liverpool had. And now all of a sudden, you've got Gakpo and you've got Mo Salah returning. You've got Ekitike, who is integrated. You've got Chiesa, who now seems to be getting more and more minutes. He's getting more involved.
Mm-hmm.
Shown what he can do. And now you've got Isak. So you've got 5 again, and then you've got the young academy lads coming up behind them.
Yeah.
So it's Liverpool attacking core, I would say on paper, is back up to strength again. But how he chooses to deal the cards, as it were, we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see on that point.
Well, Coach, as we kind of enter the international break, top of the league, 9 points. We're not getting carried away, but we had mentioned also that probably this team's going to need patience. We're going to need patience with this team, rather. And Slot's got them winning 3 games in a row right out the gate, kind of similar to last year when we preached the exact same thing because of a new coach. Do we have a coach here that just gets it? How is he doing this? I mean, obviously the players on the field are performing, and we've had two games back to back, late winners, especially last week, and a moment of magic this week. And I know it's always part of the fiber of this club, these late goals, these winners, but can we get excited again?
Well, you know me. I think that I tend to say, okay, let's see what the next game brings, and I think you've got to build up momentum. Arne Slot is clearly a good coach, and he's smart. As I said earlier, I don't get quite as excited in the same way. I mean, look, I've been supporting Liverpool since the 1960s, and so I've seen the Shankleys and the Paisleys and all these different eras. And the Jurgen Klopp era, I mean, Liverpool could be entering a phase where they win more trophies than they did under Jurgen Klopp. But I doubt that there'll ever be a team for me that's exciting as that Jurgen Klopp team that won the league. I mean, it was such an exciting team to see and to watch. And so I think Arne's style is a lot more conservative. Some would say it's smarter because he's trying to get them through the season. And I certainly see that. But as I keep saying, I don't feel he rotates enough in the midfield, just to save legs. And it looks like he's decided to keep Harvey Elliott, unless there's something late going on. I hear Tsimikas is going to Roma.
Yeah.
But it appears that was it Leipzig or Leverkusen that wanted Elliott?
Yeah, Leipzig.
Yeah, I think they've opted not to sell him. I think that could well happen in January. It depends, because maybe they've got an eye on bringing on a midfielder in January or maybe next year. But yeah. I think, look, top of the league, 3 wins out of 3, positive, 3 tough games, 3 wins, positive. Some good signings, positive. The core of last year's team that won the league, positive. Yeah, there are a lot more positives than negatives, but my gut feeling is there are still some things to be proven. And actually, whilst I'm saying that Arne Slot is a smart guy and a good coach, I think a lot of it is going to depend on him, because he's got a season under his belt. He knows what the Premier League is like. He knows what it's like to play in the Premier League and then juggle the Champions League at the same time. I think he's probably going to look back on last season and feel some degree of disappointment as to how things fizzled out in the Champions League or in that period, because you're also talking about the period where they lost the Carabao Cup final as well, and the team looked gassed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So logically, I think he's got to be looking at it and saying, okay, that's what happened last year. Now I've got some new weapons in the armory, as it were. How am I going to employ them all? And so this is now his test. So I think it's going to be very interesting and intriguing as to how he goes about it.
Coach, my last thing that I wanted to kind of bring up before we sign off here is, Gravenberch is one of, our only number 6 from one standpoint. Obviously, Maka can play there as well in a double pivot, but that's probably a spot that needs upgrading down the road, because we all love Endo. He works hard. He's a fan favorite, but from a skill level, they're miles apart. And when we were, especially last year, when we, kind of were seeing the legs kind of go, Gravenberch was one of the first ones because it seemed like he played every game. So how do we get him through the season? Because with, Wirtz, Curtis, Harvey Elliott, Endo, Maka, and Gravenberch, We have 6, but that one spot that Gravenberch plays is a spot that I'm kind of concerned about long term.
Yeah, and I think we as fans should be, but I think it's interesting that they didn't sell and they didn't loan Stefan Bajcetic.
Ah, yes.
So my guess is that they've probably got him earmarked. Now, the only time he played under Slot was on the very pre-season tour when he took the reins. So he's just coming back from an injury. He's had surgery. He's coming back from an injury. So I believe he's going to be able to start figuring in another few weeks. So they've clearly made a decision there, and he's probably going on recommendations of staff. I mean, because, certainly Bajcetic had a very good run in the team under Jurgen Klopp. And he's been away. He's got some experience playing in, was he in Austria first? And then he was in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some miles in his legs now, playing at a good level and a competitive level. And obviously, as I said, the good run when he was under Klopp. So it looks like short term, that they may look to him to maybe play a part. Do they have players in mind to play there from other clubs? Possibly, but I think right now, obviously, everything's been concentrated on the 2 lads that we'll see maybe get finalised tomorrow, Alexander Isak and then Mark Gahey. So I think that's been the priority. And whether Liverpool look to play another card in January or leave it until next summer, we have to wait and see on that score.
Yeah, good shot on Bajcetic. What I read about him is that they wanted to keep him for 2 reasons. One, to be able to look after him from a health standpoint, that obviously Liverpool's world-class health department there and physios, and then 2, to back up Gravenberch. So yeah, for sure. Well, Coach, exciting day here when we wake up tomorrow morning. There could be some more, as Fabrizio Romano says, bombs that we will see from the final day of the transfer deadline. Extremely exciting right before we came on, though, that it looks like the Isak deal is going through. So, Coach, as always, I want to thank you for your insight. And everybody, thank you for watching. The code for our fantasy league is Z8RJEV. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I've had back-to-back stinkers. I don't know about you, Coach, but and then, as always, we'd love to hear what you have to say about these topics that we brought up today and how you think Liverpool is performing. But overall, 3 wins, 9 points, top of the league. Take care, everybody.
Bye now.
Coach and I want to take a second to thank everybody for watching on YouTube or whether you're listening via podcast. Please subscribe or follow the show wherever you consume your content. We are looking forward to continuing to bring you the best Liverpool content out there. We'll see you next time.